Having put the pressure on Dominic, I leave him drumming up some interest in the house and head to Cyprus to investigate a widespread problem with title deeds that affects thousands of expat Brits. At this stage, you don't have the title deeds in your name.
I have nothing.
This nightmarish problem has cost some Brits everything.
We've invested every single penny into this house, into living in Cyprus, and we could lose it.
Cyprus was a British colony between 1925 and 1960, when it was granted independence. The property market here has taken off in recent years, especially since 2004, when the country joined the EU. 70,000 Brits now call it home, and more arrive each year. Attracted by the warm climate, the fact English is widely spoken, and because, like us, Cypriots drive on the left. But not everything is as familiar as back home. There are massive problems in Cyprus, with developers abusing property law to make huge profits for themselves. Many Brits have been sucked in and stand to lose a fortune. In the UK, when you hand over money for a property, you expect a copy of the title deeds that prove you are now its legal owner. Shockingly, this isn't necessarily the case in Cyprus. Here, archaic laws mean developers can hang on to the title deeds of properties they've sold and continue to borrow money against them. Many unsuspecting foreigners have been caught out, like Roger Snelling, who bought a 4-bedroom villa here in 2001. At this stage, you don't have the title deeds in your name.
I have nothing.
Right, and if you don't have the title deeds in your name, trying to sell it's going to be an absolute nightmare.
I won't be able to sell it.
Not only does the developer still have Roger's deeds, he also has an outstanding £180,000 mortgage on the house. So Roger went to his solicitor to see what could be done.
Unfortunately, my solicitor knew that there was a mortgage on the property, but still signed the contract. And we've actually been into court this week, and hopefully next week there'll be papers served on the developer, and then we'll go from there.
When your lawyer isn't being completely straight with you and you don't have the deeds to your property, hidden debt isn't the only nasty surprise you may get, as Will and Joanne Whitmore discovered.
We were both working in London, very long hours. Our mortgage was huge. Eventually the pressure just got too much, so we thought, you know, we'd sell up and move somewhere sunnier.
In 2004, they met a developer who showed them a house for sale in a little village a few miles from the coast, between Larnaca and Limassol.
We agreed on the day a price for the house, plus the total renovation, including the swimming pool and everything else that we wanted.
So, for £66,000, they were going to get their dream home. They instructed a solicitor recommended by the developer to do the conveyancing.
He showed us the title deed, all written in Greek, which he translated to us, and he convinced us there was no encumbrance or any problem with the deed.
They took his word for it, and, thrilled with their purchase, Joe and Will sold up in the UK and moved out to Cyprus to oversee the renovations. The finished house seemed to be just what they'd hoped for, but a month after moving in, they had a nasty shock.
We got a knock on the door. I answered the door and there was 3 people standing there, a woman, her mother and a gentleman. They asked to come in and look around the house because they used to live there. So I let them in. Within minutes, she was telling me that the house was hers, that it belonged to her. She took out a title deed and showed me a title deed and said that it was her house.
I mean, where do we stand by law? I mean, she says, well, this is my entitlement to live in this house, regardless of whether I've renovated it, and no one seems to know the law. Even solicitors just shrug their shoulders and say, oh, it's a problem.
A problem indeed. Without a translation of all the legal paperwork, Joe and Will didn't spot that the developer didn't actually own the house he was claiming to sell them, and they are now effectively squatting in a house they've spent their entire life savings on. I've obtained a copy of the deeds and, having discussed them with a lawyer, think there may be a glimmer of hope. Now, because the family that have ownership of this home at the moment lived locally, watched the property be renovated and watched its value increase and didn't do anything, OK, they may have forfeited their right to claim this property as theirs. Because if you think about it logically, you know, why would you do that? Why, if suddenly something was going on at the property and somebody else was spending money on it, excuse me, this is my house, what's going on? Yeah. No, it was waited until the house looked like this, not like a ruin when it did originally. In the past, property in countries like this had no value. They'd just be passed from family member to family member. But now, with money coming in from outside and the whole economy developing, property suddenly has a value, and that's when all the problems start. It's only when money is involved that it becomes an issue.
It's not just money, though, it's people's lives, isn't it? You know, we're talking about if this house does get repossessed from us, that's us finished. We've lost everything. You would expect your solicitor to look after you. He obviously knew that this man didn't own the house.
But the issue is, at the end of the day, there's only one thing you want, and you want the title deeds. Yeah. Once you've got the title deeds, even if you have to pay some money towards it, at least you've protected your overall investment. The Whitmores and Roger Snelling's predicaments are just two of many similar cases. It strikes me this cockeyed legal system allows unscrupulous solicitors and greedy developers to get away with fleecing unwitting house buyers. I've wangled an appointment with a government minister to challenge him about this. The people I've met while I've been here are very, very distressed, and they are stuck waiting for their title deeds. What is the government doing about this at the moment to help them?
We suggested, in the first place, administrative sanctions to be imposed on some developers, and if there will be no outcome, then we'll come back again, we'll propose the whole thing to be criminalised.
The minister tells me the government is taking the problem of dodgy developers' interpretation of the law seriously, and that the rules are being tightened to protect buyers' interests. But buyers still need to be able to rely on their lawyers. How can I, as somebody from overseas wanting to buy here, get a list of lawyers that I know that I could trust?
If I would put that question to you for lawyers in England, would you be able in a position to give me that list?
Yes.
Of course not.
No.
What do you mean yes?
I could, 100% I could, and do you know why?
Why?
Because every lawyer in the UK is registered with the Law Society. If that lawyer fails in their duties to look after me as a client, I can go to the Law Society and they will look after me. They will redress to get the money back and they will sort it out.
The same happens here.
Will and Joe have now instructed a new independent lawyer to represent their case to the Land Registry, so they're one step closer to getting those all-important title deeds. They've also been to see the police, and there's been a breakthrough.
The CID have a case against the developer on 3 accounts of fraud, forgery and theft. They had the developer arrested. They've searched his offices and they've gained documents to prove that he actually sold us the house before he'd even paid a deposit to the previous owner, which is a criminal matter, even in Cyprus.
The one thing we have learned is it is one step at a time in Cyprus. You've just got to keep on going and going and going until the end, because we're not giving up, and that's it.
Despite government promises, it might be a while before things change here in Cyprus. So if you're planning to buy here, make sure you get an independent lawyer to check with the Land Registry that the property you want to buy is actually owned by the person selling it. And if you're planning to buy from a developer, get your solicitor to do a background check on them before you part with any cash.